First of all, I really appreciate this today. It's a great honor to be here and to talk to all of you. You know, I heard John talk and some others, and we talked about meeting with people. You know, and this is what it is all about. You know, we need to be accountable to you. You know, we're accountable to the voters of our counties in respect to what your desires and wishes are. So town meetings like this, in my book, is what it's all about. I talk to other electeds who sometimes share with me their fear to meet with the people. And I wonder why that fear is there. And I come away with the fact that when you shed light on things, sometimes some faults are brought to light and issues are brought to light. But how in the heck do we learn if we're not talking to you? This is where, you know, it all begins, and this is where it should all end, right here. We hear what the people have to say, we take that back, we institute those things that you who elected us to do, we take care of and we carry through with. That's what it's all about. One of the things that really touches my heart, and I've heard it said here today, and I use this term explicitly now, that we are a republic. We are not a democracy. We are a country of a rule of law, not a rule of mob. A republic looks out for the individual, not the mass. Even the mass is involved, but everybody's individual rights are considered in a republic. That's something we've missed, and we continue to be barraged in our schools, in the news. Everyone wants to use the word democracy. We are not a democracy, and we continue to lose that in our daily life. You know, we talk about community. We talk about heritage. We talk about what we are as a people. And I think back to where we are today. I've thought a lot about my own past, my own heritage. My father was a pilot of a B-17 during World War II. He flew his 25 missions over France and Belgium and Germany and told me stories of the horror that he saw as a young man. My wife who's in the audience, her father was a tail gunner at a B-17, was shot down, spent his 18th or 19th birthday as a prisoner of war, and was there for 3 years. I have a brother who served in Vietnam, and I had my third son, my fifth child, is getting ready to report to Fort Benning, Georgia on the 28th of July. And I just pray to God that what he's reporting for is the same reasons that those in my past reported for, was to continue a rich heritage for the country that we've all learned to love and to live in. But I see it slipping day to day. Well, Humboldt County, you know, what is Humboldt County? It's a county of about 3,570 square miles, population base of about 135,000. It's larger than a lot of other Northern California counties for one reason, because we have a lot of privately owned property in Humboldt County. And that's why Humboldt County is probably, well, it is a leader in timber in California because of that property that is privately owned. Now, in the past, my colleagues here, they had thriving lumber industries because they relied upon your land to harvest that timber for the use by you and us and everyone else in California. And that has stopped. That's why Humboldt County still is, I wouldn't say it's a thriving timber industry, but we do have a timber industry there. Funny thing is, though, much of our timber is being shipped to China. Go figure. But anyway, we also have a large cattle industry in Humboldt County. Fishing, you know, the poor salmon that were said to be almost non-extinct. They're saying this is the best run and that anyone can remember. One of my lieutenants brags to me all the time. He says, if I go out first thing in the morning, I can limit out in about an hour. And that hadn't been heard of in years. So the salmon are returning. Another thing Humboldt County is big on is marijuana. I'm going to spend some time talking about that. And something else that we were noted for this last year, we had an Occupy in Eureka. And in my book, it went on way too long. We had a lot of officials on both the county and city that were very concerned about taking any action for a number of reasons. But anyway, we finally were able to work through that. Occupy is gone in front of the courthouse. It was probably one of the vilest things I've ever seen in my life. When we talk about the rights of the individuals, I mean, here's a clear example of mob rule where the rights of the individuals, us that have to work there, and those that want to come and conduct business at the courthouse, was totally overlooked. In fact, I spoke at one of the Board of Supervisors meetings when they were putting an ordinance into place, and I talked about a republic and what it meant. And the funny thing about it is the occupiers couldn't really argue with me because they were operating under the same guise of the fact that the rights of the individual matter. So it was quite a time. But I think of what our role is as government and what government is supposed to do for us, the people. We the people. So let me talk about marijuana since I already threw it out there. You know, I have to give credit to Sheriff on my left, Tom Allman. Tom did something that was unprecedented in California. And he's an entrepreneur, right, Tom?
I have a good business plan.
You bet. Tom took a state law that was put into effect back in 1996 that was poorly written and poorly put out to the public and under the guise of compassionate use, but it was really a disguise to allow commercial growing of marijuana in California. And what happened was Tom looked at this and said, you know what, we have a problem policing this issue, so he came up with a plan. And it was a darn good plan. And they actually were able to garner revenue off of those that were growing supposedly legal marijuana to sustain their programs to check on the marijuana, deal with those that were abusing the law, and to deal with land use issues. Well, the federal government came and said, you know what, and I'm not an advocate of, don't get me wrong, I'm not an advocate of marijuana by any means, but they came along and said, you know what, Sheriff Allman, County of Mendocino, and anybody else in California that wants to try to step out on your own, you're wrong. And we are going to come down on you, and it's illegal. In our book, marijuana is illegal, is illegal, is illegal. And that's the way it is. So your county suspended the plan that you had. So after seeing this, I realized in Humboldt County, we have a hell of a problem with marijuana. I worked marijuana 20 years ago out in the field, cutting and whacking and stacking and eradicating, and I have never seen marijuana like it's being grown today. And 215, believe it or not, folks, is being abused to the hill. And so I decided what I need to do is, if the federal government is going to rattle the sabers, as I like to put it, then I need their help. And I need their help to deal with the marijuana issue in Humboldt County, because I'm not getting it from the state. The state of California is broke. The state of California has disbanded their interdiction of drugs pretty much. Department of Justice, Bureau of Narcotics Enforcement is pretty much gone. I, as a sheriff, have taken over the drug task force within our county, which has always been a state-run task force, and it's now under the office of the sheriff. But I realized that there are no resources to deal with a problem that is impacting our community on a daily basis. So I went to the federal government. I've met with the U.S. Attorney in the Northern District. I've met with the DEA. I've met with a number of people starting back in October and told them, you're telling us what we need to do. And this is a federal issue. I believe that there are state issues, but I think this is a federal issue, especially if the federal government is saying you cannot do that. Then you need to come in and you need to help me deal with this problem. So I have gotten some help from the federal government in that regard, with resources and that type of thing. But interesting enough, this last week, I have a couple of my agents that are actually cross-deputized as drug enforcement agents, so they've written some federal warrants, and we had a number of federal officers up here helping us. We took down 3 or 4 major complexes in our county, and we arrested somewhere in the vicinity of 20 to 25 Bulgarians, believe it or not. Big enclave of Bulgarians. They were from Chicago, from San Francisco, from Bulgaria, all over the place. And truly a federal case. We have an international implication here. Well, I come to find out that the U.S. Attorney's Office was reconsidering whether they wanted to file on this case, making it a state case. The other thing I thought was very interesting, and this should touch each of you tenderly, is there was 2 agents from the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, that came along. I've never seen that before. A federal entity, and their job is to what? Protect the environment. Well, I'll tell you right now, the environment is not being protected by these marijuana growers. What they're doing out there in the hills is unbelievable. So these 2 EPA agents come. The first day there was 2. The second day there was 1, because the one that stayed home said it was too hard and he wasn't going to come back out. But the one agent that was there, talking to my deputy, said, "Nah, we're not coming back." They said, "Really?" "Yeah, we're not going to come back. We're going to tell our bosses we're not coming back. The U.S. Attorney's been pushing us for years to get involved, but we realize this really isn't our thing." Now, I was trying to draw a nexus there. Environmental protection, we can show that our environment is being dramatically impacted, but it's not your thing. I could not figure out what the problem was. Well, to put it simply, this is what their answer was. It's not our thing because it's dealing with individuals, and it's not dealing with industry or business. And this is the problem. They're so in tune to stifling business, and you want to talk about no growth in our country, it's because business is being stifled by these federal agencies that care nothing about what is going on. They want to stifle our growth, and that's exactly what's happening. So, in short, what has happened is we're working with our own county environmental agencies trying to deal with this issue. I've heard the spotted owl talked about, and that type of thing. And so let's talk a little bit about environmental issues again. About 2 weeks ago, I put on a symposium in our county, and I had some of the federal marijuana people come in, county agencies, partners with both state and national partners. There was a young man there from the UC Davis Extension campus, and he's a biologist. And he came in and he had a PowerPoint presentation. He was drawing a parallel. He was telling us about what rodenticides are, and rodenticides work similar to those medicines that are used to stop clotting of your blood. And it's a buildup in the system. And he was talking about first and second generation. He lost me somewhere along the way. But anyway, he talked about how it works in all these different animals. And what he has been studying for the last few years are fishers. And fishers, if you don't know, are the mammals that are found in the redwood forest and the deep, dense forests of Northern California. And they found that there was a direct connection between these rodenticides and the killing of these fishers. And they couldn't figure out why at first. High mortality rate. They're talking about these animals that are in deep, dense forests of Northern California, far away from urban areas, far away from agricultural areas where these rodenticides are commonly used. They couldn't figure out why is this happening. So they began to do a little research in the area surrounding these forests and in these forests, and they found the problem was commercial marijuana grows. They found buckets of rodenticides left open. They found grains and that type of thing that would bring the rodents in, laced with rodenticides on the ground. And believe it or not, they found that as these fishers died, spotted owls were eating them. And guess what? They have a high mortality rate of spotted owls with rodenticides in their systems. And deer kill. They're finding deer with the same problem. High concentrations of rodenticides in their systems. And they can't figure out why this is happening. Well, it's because we have an industry that's unregulated and is out of control. And we talk about, you know, like I said, I talked about the timber industry and how we have a high rate of privately owned timber company in Humboldt County. And for years I've heard that one of the problems with the timber industry was the fact that their road systems they put in, their clear cutting, which is a fallacy, haven't clear cut in many, many years, but all this silt is washing into the rivers and into the watersheds, killing the fish, you know, damming up, you know, causing problems, so forth and so on. Well, last year, myself and the district attorney for Humboldt County, I said, let's take an overflight and look at some of the problems we're having with marijuana. And we took countless pictures of illegally made pads out in the middle of nowhere. They'd taken a dozer and disturbed the soil and made these large building pads with these huge greenhouses on them to grow marijuana in. None of this ground is being stabilized in any way. It's fresh, open dirt and soil that's been exposed. And when it rains, and it rained this last year, I guarantee you that the silting of the streams and the tributaries and the watershed was far worse than the timber industry could have done. But they want to regulate those activities. So the problem is, I see this upside down. We're regulating those that are trying to get our economy going and letting the others go. And it's a free ride. The same thing with another problem in Humboldt County is if a rancher or someone that has a timber operation, they have to register that they have insecticides, pesticides stored on their properties for use in their industry. What goes along with that is the county then requires that they have a permit. And along with that permit, they have to be subject to inspection. So they'll go out and they'll inspect. And when they're out there, they'll inspect their tanks that are holding their insecticides and pesticides, and they'll go, oh, by the way, what's that tank over there? Oh, that's where I keep my diesel. I have to have diesel fuel on the property to run my equipment. Well, we're going to inspect that too. Well, that's not part of the permitting process, but so what we're having is some of these ranchers are now being, and timber people are now being inspected on things that are never part of the plan, so they're starting to buck up against that and say, and I've told them before also, so tell them no. They don't have a right to go over and inspect your tank. They have a right to be there and inspect your insecticide. Can't inspect your tank. So what's happening is they're making it so difficult for these people to continue legitimate businesses. So I asked some of these inspectors, what about the guy next door who's got 5,000 marijuana plants and an indoor grow? He's got a generator big enough to power Downey County easily, and they have fuel leaking on the ground 24/7. What about them? Well, it's Mike, that's an illegal operation. We don't deal with that. We only deal with legal ones. What is wrong with the picture? I hate to tell you this, but those running the store need to go back to school and learn how to run the store, because that's what's the problem with America right now. And I think you probably all share what I said earlier. You know, we are regulating ourselves out of business in this country.
Amen.
And the longer we continue to allow this to happen, the worse it's going to get. And I talked about heritage, and I talked about what many people, many of the veterans here, and I salute each one of you, fought for over these many years. You know, this is not what my dad wanted to see. It's what not. I'm sure many veterans are shaking their head too, saying, well, is this what we're all about? You know, is this what we come to? I think it's time for America to wake up, and I see that happening. But have we woken up in time? It's time for us to wake up and stand up for what is right in this country. And I think what we've shared here today are many things that are wrong. And what we're asking for as your elected officials is for you to stand with us. Not behind us, but with us. talking way too long, and again, I want to thank you for your time, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.